It's gonna be a good one.
It's gonna be a good one.
Definitely a different type of process.
Cut down or freeze up.
Being a coach's son.
Jackson, of course, they keep retooling. One stolen base, a hit by pitch. Oh my goodness.
Welcome, everybody, to another episode of the Hitting Zone podcast. That is where gangsters don't dance, we boogie. Get your boogie on. Get your boogie on. I was listening to it in the car ride here. I like Ice Cube. Could be a fan.
Oh, mercy.
Today was a good day. Ice Cube is a pimp. Read it on the Goodyear blimp, all out 9 yards. But last time I made a rap reference, it actually went.
Give me some T-Boney Soprano.
Yeah. Who? Tony?
T-Bone.
Tony?
T-Bone.
I know Tony Soprano.
T-Bone.
I got you. Well, anyways, shout out.
Little West Coast rap. Same thing.
Probably not. Yours doesn't probably have cuss words in it. Mine does. I don't have the parental advisory ones. Or wait a minute, I have those. I don't have the clean edits. I don't have no kids in the car, so I'm good. I'm old enough to listen to cuss words. But anyways, Youth Baseball Midwest.
But why?
Listen, we need a whole other.
Asking why?
Because it rhymes. And so whatever, I don't know the choice of words. I've actually been better at using those in my own personal life because I will agree that sometimes there's not a need for cuss words.
I agree.
To be fair. But anyways, Youth Baseball Midwest, that is who is our show producer, sponsors, the whole 9 yards. Youth Baseball Midwest on YouTube. You have to go there.
We're here. Well, that's where the show is. If you're watching this.
Yeah, we're here.
We're here.
In St. Charles County.
No. On YouTube.
On YouTube.
So you're already here, so might as well just hit the subscribe button.
That's right. I forgot. I think Instagram. I forgot about that algorithm thingy that we go to actually YouTube to do all of this. So yeah, you don't have to go to YouTube. You're already there. Click share. I'd rather have you click share so everybody can see it and then they can subscribe. We got some fun things coming up, so you have to make sure you stay tuned because there's going to be a lot of things happening over the next few months. Anyways, Game 7 Baseball. Game7baseball.com.
Oh, you didn't give me my document.
Yeah, it's my show, not yours, so I'm not giving it to you because I think you forgot to give it to me last time. So
Did I?
Yeah, it's paybacks. But anyways, we had a good weekend over there. We struggled a little bit with our team, but I was proud of my group going over there and actually competing. Yeah, it was a different 1 and 2. For me,
competitive 1-2.
Yeah, just the way we played the game of baseball. We ran into that Mama's team who ended up winning the state tournament. We beat them in pool play. They beat us in bracket play when it mattered. But the game was close. It got out of hand because of a few free bases and that you can't get, whether it was errors, walks. But that's how the cookie crumbles, and you learn from it. But I was more proud of my team. Working through some things. Normally they would have been upset after big strikeouts or a booted play, and they are working extremely hard, and which leads into today's topic that I actually wanted to talk about, which was developing athletes or development, and what does development mean? I actually think
is that a big D or a little D?
Ooh, average D. Make sure you get that as a short, if you will. You cannot throw some things out there because that's like the movie Shrek. Like there's, adult innuendos in there. And that to me was my immaturity. I still have fun. But anyways, call it what you want. I call it capital D.
Capital D.
For development. This is something that I think is a hot topic right now to talk about because I think those are a lot of questions that are going to be raised for tryout season. And to me, I think it is a subjective term. Mm-hmm. I think that everybody kind of has their own perception of it. I know there's a definition, and how does it play into baseball? So I'm going to raise that question to you first, actually, instead of me talking about it right away. And then I'm going to give you kind of my feedback so that I can argue with you and you can't argue with me. But in your words, what is development for our young athletes? Middle school, grade school, middle school, high school.
Just in the basic thought process of it, an 8-year-old really doesn't know how to play the game of baseball, right? There is mechanical development. There is mental development. There is maturation on a whole level. One of the things that stood out to me, and has stood out to me for quite some time, is the lack of development in sportsmanship. Sportsmanship is not about on the field, you hard slide, bing, bang, boom. You don't even have to you don't have to get up and pat somebody on the butt, and say, hey, my bad. Hard slide, hard slide. You don't have to call names. You don't have to do anything. Hard slide's a hard slide. It's hard play. The intent should not be to hurt somebody. And I don't think anybody goes out with the intent that way. Sportsmanship on the one side is that maturity level of things that I think we're lacking, and I don't see it in the elementary, middle school, and it's filtering into the high school stuff. Saw some things this weekend I thought was, so I think development wise, I think we need to remember these things, but it starts with the fact that, in the development process, understanding that you don't deserve wins. All you get is opportunities. And to get that opportunity, the development process starts way down early in how you play the game, how well you play the game, the ability to focus, and teaching kids how to focus. You go into most of these off-season camps and things like this, kids are running around, pulling on the nets, climbing the nets and whatnot. I don't think we're taking enough time to develop the ability to concentrate and focus. Well, you can't get an 8-year-old to. Yes, you can. Yes, you can. It may not be as long
Yeah.
as a 14 or 15-year-old, and maybe it's vice versa. I don't know. Maybe you can get an 8-year-old to focus longer than you get a 14-year-old sometimes.
I'm dealing with both right now. I actually have an
Right?
8U group I'm working with because I wanted to challenge myself.
And honestly, I think the biggest factor isn't so much it's the instruction, the things this way. I think it's our lack of training kids on the ability to focus and concentrate for an extended period of time. And that is a process.
I feel like what you're explaining to me, and this is my perception of kind of how you ended that, is accountability factors. And I think part of that is in the development process. And because if you don't hold kids accountable for things, whatever that may be, there's no development. Whether that is
you have to teach a kid how to concentrate, how to focus. That's a learned experience.
Yeah, I think, and I'm still old fashioned, so I feel like sometimes you have to kind of force it a little bit. Whether that's
absolutely
getting into a player.
That's what teaching is.
Yeah, and I think that is kind of how I kind of perceive development too. Is I've found that training's training, right? I know there's a process to it. I know there's an opportunity for growth. We're getting better. We're doing those things. But when I think about the 2 hours that we have, how often do we talk about how to attack a hitter? And then the reality of it, you can talk about it all you want until you have to execute it. And then when we're in games, like you talked about the hard slide.
Yeah.
We had a really good hard slide against the Mambas this weekend. My fans went bonkers, my side. I was like, guys, that's a good baseball play. That is a hard play. That is my second baseman needed to get out of the way. He learned from that. He was unhappy. I mean, rightfully so. He caught one in the shin, but he just turned the page. I went out and make sure he's all right. And I say, hey man, this is what you got to do next time to get out of the way. but that's his bag too. He went straight to the bag. He didn't go left or right. He didn't slide late. It was just a good hard slide by a fast runner, big kid.
And that's what you do.
No, I did. I was like, ooh,
Yeah.
I smiled because
It's a baseball play.
and I did. I really did. I looked over at my assistant coach who was helping me, and Jeff Tierney, appreciated it. And I go, man, that's not a big deal. You know, player's mom, I was like, hey, that's just baseball.
It's baseball.
You know, and so I went out there, but that was an opportunity where I felt like I could coach him up.
Yeah.
Which I feel like that is developing
Yes.
actually the athletes.
At that level, especially
Mhm.
when you talk about, okay, you're talking about 8, 9, 10. I'm just trying to get the 8-year-old to look at me. I want your eyes here. That's one of the things that I thought was very interesting. And I think it's easy for people to tune you out when they're not looking at you.
Oh, yeah.
Eye contact. We talk about jobs. We talk about going and getting a job, and talking to somebody, a firm handshake. You know, I don't know about, anymore. You show up in flip-flops and a T-shirt. Put a tie on, man. Come on. You're going to a job interview. Anyway, I said that out loud, didn't I?
Buddy, I don't match and I'm in flip-flops.
Well, we're sitting here on a podcast.
I know it's totally different,
That's
but
what it is,
I agree.
But again, we're talking about things, how you set things in motion, what you do. To get 8-year-olds to listen, and I've done this. I mean, it's something that I've understood and learned from way back. The first time I ever coached, I was 20, 21, something like that. It was soccer. I went to, and I had a 5-year-old team, right? But I understood certain principles. How do you get kids? Hey, guys, right here, first and foremost. And I would work my way around and look at each one of them in the eye. And I made sure. And if somebody was messing around with, guys, nope, right here, coach talking, pay attention. This is important. And making that, I don't, and I know there are guys do, but really focusing in on that part of it. How do you teach kids to focus? How do you teach them to concentrate? If that doesn't start at that level, that doesn't translate into that next thing. How do you get a kid to work, to build work ethic, to do that, to where you can understand what it means to focus in on a training piece? Mm-hmm. You want them to work off the tee. Well, they're over there. Most of the time you see these kids farting around, over there playing, with they're goofing off and whatnot. And there's not a lot of focus on the actual
task at hand.
Exactly. And so how do you do that? Well, that's got to start. So they learn that in this moment, I've got to focus on this intent. And then there are kids that just are not going to do it. There's some that just, they're not interested in it. And that's where you see the divide between kids that are really focused in on working towards getting better and kids that aren't. And that's the difference. And then you can understand how to separate and create teams where, mom goes, well, how come my kid's not on the AAA team? Because he's not focused enough to play on that team.
You got to have a AAA focus. I think that's a big deal and very underrated in the process of club baseball and what we do in our training. Mm-hmm. I don't think we demand that enough. Maybe because we have young trainers or, they're not secure in being able to, holler at a kid or whatever the case may be to get focus.
You don't have to always do that.
Yeah, I'm not saying hollering is great, but
I'm not saying sometimes you got to get a little forceful.
Yeah, raising the voice can obviously grab some attention.
Yeah.
But I also think part of that same thing when we practice or train, that you can't take a stagnant drill like hitting off of a tee and you only have 3 tees, you have 9 guys and there's 3 kids at each tee station. You're going to have kids lose focus. So
how do you keep them?
How do you keep them moving? And I think at these younger ages, what I'm realizing, because we don't move enough, right? We don't play outside. We don't ride bikes. We don't roller skate. We don't play hockey, throw the football around. We're trying to train movements as we get older. I think those movements can be trained much, much earlier in the younger age group. And that just keeps kids moving, ultimately keeps kids focused, in my opinion, which starts to earn that trust and confidence of your coach. That say, hey, young man, or whatever it is, they grab their attention and boom, they're back into it. where sometimes it's very difficult to give them a slow drill, expect them to do their job, and then have that slow drill, and it just in a half hour you're doing it 3 times.
And I think that's a great point, but I think that has to do with us and sometimes dads, no offense, I think I'm a proponent of dad coaches. I know all these people like to go, oh, it's daddy ball. Knock it off. If we don't have dad coaches, we don't have baseball. Period. And you know what? Here's the thing. All these high school coaches I saw out there had their families with them and their kids and whatnot. Guess what? They're dads too. Ain't that amazing?
Well, I got my own
so
opinion on that.
Tired of that nonsense. That doesn't mean they're necessarily good coaches. I get that. And do they have some of the experience or some of the knowledge? No. Let's help them. That's the point. And we need to help the dads get better at instructing and learning or teaching and those types of things. You set up a drill like that and you have 3 kids at a station. Well, you as a coach, you've got to make sure you go by each one regularly and keep the kids, hey, what are we talking about here? Are we talking about each other's swing? Are we watching our buddy and going, hey, man, you're dropping this? Hey, and keeping the conversation about baseball rather than Fortnite. Right?
Yeah, and that's where I think you have to have an army of coaches at sometimes, especially at grade school, because I think when you have 10, 11 kids and you have 2 coaches, it's going to be very difficult to wrangle.
You just got to keep pushing. But you got to work through it. You don't stay at one place too long. Keep walking and talking through. You go to that person, hey, I can talk to this guy. Hey, guys, make sure we're watching these things. You're putting that 5 swings. You don't need more than 5 swings at one time.
At any age level, by the way.
Right?
I mean, there's a reason why in the big leagues they take 6, 7 hacks and they're out of the cage, good, bad, whatever, and they move on. There's reasons for this.
Rotate.
Well, if you took 100 swings, how tired are you going to get at swing 20?
Right.
And
you're failing your mechanics at that point.
Yeah. So
anyway.
Then we're not developing our swing. So if we go back to that, but I think the youngest piece is hard, especially how to communicate too. And I think that's part of the developing our young people. I really like what you said in the terms of sportsmanship. I was out at out at Warrenton this past weekend for 14U. There was younger age groups. There was a team sitting out there getting ready to hit next, and there was a 10U team hitting F-bombs. I was on the field and I was thinking to myself, where's the coach? This bothers me because they're not aware of the surroundings. And I feel like that stuff should have been addressed a long time ago. Like, that's not okay to do. I do understand kids are going to cuss. They're going to do that whenever they want, under their breath, whatever the case may be. I don't think you can take that away, but you can strongly encourage against it, right?
Mm-hmm.
And
hey, respect where we're at. There's 100%. People around here.
The coach from one of the 10U team was like, stop doing what he's doing, and hollered at him. And I thought, you know what? That's a guy that I would let my son go play for, because that's not happening. Mm-hmm. And all he said is just be aware of what's in, who's in the room, kind of thing. And to me, I was like, well, what are we actually doing as coaches, organizations, when we are trying to develop these young people? I struggle when you have a high school kid or fresh out of high school coaching a high school baseball team, or even an 8, 9, 10U team. You have parents that are brand new to this sport asking all these different questions. How are you going to answer them? You're most likely just going to appease them, try to make them happy, and you're not really doing what we need to do. And how much are they even developed? The paid coach isn't what it's cracked up to be, personally. There's no investment, especially by the young folks. There is some, okay? But the parent coach, that person has investment. Stop worrying about the front of the jersey, and start worrying about if that, you have a parent coach, or maybe he shouldn't be in an organization. Maybe he should be coaching rec baseball, because that's where his mindset is. That's where his team is.
Sure.
But we don't do that enough.
That. Right.
I don't either, of course, because I think
Absolutely.
rec baseball needs to be.
I think it's fun.
Come back.
It needs it.
Because I told my parents, because I am going to coach a 9U team next year, and I told them as we're working with a small group of 8U kids right now, Coach, they keep asking me, what is the focus for next year? I go, ice cream after the game. I want to bring
Snow cones.
Yeah,
Shout out to Sissel.
I want to bring back that because the game is so difficult as we get older, especially in high school, that I need those kids to maintain having fun and not worried about their strikeouts. Do I want them to learn? Sure. But when we get to 12 years old, I really want them to say, you know, I did this, whatever, I'm going to go work on that. I don't want them in the moment being all frustrated because then the game just changes, and it is no fun to be around people who are all into their feelings in the game of baseball. And if they're not going to come out of it and they don't want to hear it, and they don't want to do these things, that piece to me is going back to the word developing. Watch baseball on TV, and I guarantee you will develop a skill from just watching the game of baseball or listening to the game of baseball. And I say that because you're consistently watching moving parts. And then the guys on TV typically talk about the why. And then just like that, you have baseball IQ. And that's part of developing. And the game is where I think a lot of development comes from. Mm-hmm. And if we're not coaching in the moment, those kids are going to forget.
You know, again, coming back to that focus part of it, you know, we're talking about baseball conversations too. You know, kids are going to be talking about chit chat and what they did, you know, this, that. I was jumping in the pool. Well, you know, that's cool. And here's the thing, and I want to make sure we have an understanding of what we're talking about. I'm not talking about it. That's all you. No. Before practice, kids are talking about, but you got 8, 9, 10, 11. One of the things that I think is very difficult in our society because of that, the phone, texting, all this, we've lost the art of communication a little bit. And I know everybody goes, oh, that's no, it's true. And teaching kids how to communicate at a different level, understanding when they come to a place how to communicate. When they get in the workforce, they're going to have to learn how to communicate. All these things, you know, don't use AI. You know, learn how to think for yourself. That's a good thing. You know, write something. Being able to talk, communicate, share information, do these types of things, understand what it means to communicate. We're having a conversation, understanding what he's saying, what I'm saying. How do we come to a place where we understand how we move forward? So as a team, you got a bunch of 8-year-olds. Do they really know how to communicate at that level? No, they're 8. But that's the teaching. So in that mechanic, you're teaching them, hey, you know, you're watching the guy, you're watching your teammate, you're talking to him about a swing. Hey, that's a good swing. You know, you start with small things, encouragement, things of that nature, not burning down and not tearing down like, dude, your swing sucks. And that's what you hear most of the time in these cages is a lot of derogatory comments amongst 8 and 9-year-olds. I see it all the time. Dude, instead of, I understand a little good fun ribbon, but it's not. And
they also don't know that either.
Yes. Teaching how to communicate on a positive level, helping each other. Hey, I'll get that. Hey, we'll working together, teamwork. All of these things are the foundation of what you build upon, the communication level, the focus, the concentration, the understanding of these things. Will it all happen in a moment? No, but people say, I don't know if you can get it. Yes, you can. I've done it, been there, done that. You can. That's what coaching is. It's not a matter of just, go out and let's see if we can win a ball game. That's the least of your concerns. The first step in a development process is setting the framework in which these kids can develop. Yep. And that's why the adults have to be in the room.
Yeah, and I like the going back to focus. And that's actually something I didn't really consider, at least using that term. Mm-hmm. I think that's in a roundabout way I would have gotten to that, but I think about how you can encourage an 8-year-old to communicate, and it could be nonverbal communications, it could be verbal communication, and you just kind of demand it almost. And I'm using that very loosely because obviously I'm not going to, you do this. I'm not saying that necessarily.
Right. I understand.
But to encourage somebody to go, you know what, when we do bunt, and it happens to be he moved a runner over, I want us to celebrate that. So you're almost like you are forcing the good vibes, that creates the focus and the desires that we want to keep doing on this field.
Absolutely.
And so I think,
but you're setting a standard is what I think. It's not a forced issue. It's a standard by which this is the way the game is played.
it has for 100 years. We don't let Rob Manfred change some rules, like with the pitch clock and stuff like that. That's game changing to try to make this more fun.
That's a whole different level.
The game is fun if you play it at a certain level. If you're there and you're worried about going 3 for 3, the game is not going to be fun, period. And that has to change at a young age. It was funny. I was at my 18U game the other day, which we did well with 2-1. And it was a good tie, I guess, if you could have a tie, which it's never fun in baseball to have a tie, but that's what the rules are. But we had a situation where we hit behind a guy. He's down 0-2, worked to count even, and then hit a baseball right side, moved him from second to third, and we ended with 2 outs. We had runner at third base, pass ball, very next pitch. We score a run. Okay, I think that's a big deal. When that happened, I wanted every kid in the dugout out of the field to say good job to the guy that hit the baseball to the right side. Why celebrate that? We don't score from third base.
That's a high five.
100%, because he's down 0-2. That is a win in the book. That's a quality at bat in the book. Is it a 4-hopper over there?
Productive out.
Yeah, sure. But that's the thing, is nobody understands that piece. And so going back to at 8, 9 years old, maybe that's not what we're doing, but we're working towards that conversation.
Absolutely.
So, hey guys, get out of the dugout. High five him for that great bunt.
Exactly. And that's the thing. That's where the communication level on that's a productive out. Hey guys, whatnot. And the kid isn't, I see so many kids, and I'm going to be very, I'm sorry. I did not see a lot of kids crying back in the day. I see so many kids coming back to the dugout so dejected, crying because they struck out or they did this or whatnot. We've got to, and that's where I'm saying the narrative has got to change. It's too much. Because of one at bat, they can't play. They don't understand. And we're not communicating that at a level that is necessary for these kids to understand. Okay, you struck out. Well, Johnny's hitting the ball. Yeah, but Johnny's been out 4 times too. So he hit the ball. I mean, that's baseball. He grounded out all 4 times. So what's different? Nothing. And that communication level, understanding how to produce a focused intent, it's still the next one. Well, you got to go out and play defense. If you walk out there crying, you're not going to play well.
Oh, it happened. It happened to me. It happened to my 17-year-old. I got a kid going to MOBAP, and he went out 1, 2, 3, first inning, 2 Ks out of that inning, dealing, goes out, and we had bases loaded with nobody out and didn't score. Okay. Pop up infield, strikeout. My pitcher, which I don't always like to do this, was that last batted out, couldn't go back out there and focus because he was so frustrated with his at bat. I understand.
I understand frustration. I do. Yeah.
At some point we try to use in a big moment, get 30 seconds. In a small moment, you get 10. Mm-hmm. You got to clear. Right. Yes. And so he goes out there and first pitch ball, told him to breathe. He breathes. Strike, gets even, 2-2, ground ball, right back at him, and he boots it. He's probably still thinking about the at-bat, and then after he boots it, guess what happens? Wheels fall off. Some runs get scored. 5 runs that inning. And why?
Focus.
It goes back to that. Focus. But nobody taught him when he was younger, which is, to your point, how to flush that. And whether that's a driver from the coach on preaching that for 6-7 years prior, whatever that case may be, it's not just about the physical skills. It's not even just the mental skills. It is a driver on respect for me to the game.
Absolutely.
Because I don't think the game owes any of us grade school, middle school, or a high school kid anything. Mm-hmm. Some people will say that, like, I feel like the game owes me something.
The game doesn't know anybody.
No,
It's a game. There's no deserve. There's no owed. There's no death. There's no nothing.
Yep.
It's a game that we play.
And you have to play it as hard as you can with your intentions you talked about. If you don't have intentions in your catch play, what makes you think you're going to throw strikes?
And that's the other thing. How much can, again, each drill, we talked about the hitting. It's the same thing with a throwing drill. Do you know how to throw a baseball to where your teammate can catch it and learn how to catch it? If you got little kids and the balls are chucking everywhere, how do you learn? How do you set your glove? Catch radius. We talk about catch radius, right?
They go circles.
Where's your catch radius? So I've got to teach kids in a break and throw drill, a basic athletic throwing motion, to throw within a catch radius for his teammate. Because and then we go, oh man, make the throw. And that's what you hear from the
probably why they cry.
The bleachers.
That's why they cry.
But you have done nothing in your practices to help that young man, that young player throw to first base within a catch radius.
I posted something not too long ago on my Instagram, and it was kind of sarcastic, but it has a lot of truth to it. I am not a big, when you're hitting in a cage and you pick up a ball and you're trying to shoot in a bucket, I'm not a massive fan of that. One, I think it takes time.
Fart around too much.
Yeah. Okay. However, in order to throw that ball into that bucket, you have to have some sort of feel, touch, whatever you want to call it, right?
That's correct.
So imagine if you played catch like that. And that's what I said in the video. It was sarcastic. I got some views on it, got some comments on it. And, it's like, it's really just that simple. The game doesn't have to be difficult when it's talking about pitch and catch, or hitting or whatever the case may be. Is it hard to hit a baseball? Sure. Is it hard to do some things on the baseball field? Absolutely, right? But at the end of the day, catch the ball, throw the ball. That's it. And if you can't do those two things, you're not going to be a good baseball player. And if you're not focused on your drill work and you're not focused on your game play, your catch play, or at all,
right,
you're not going to develop as an athlete.
And the thing of it is, we talk about the hitting. Everybody talks so much about the hitting and hitting and hitting.
What gets people paid in the big leagues.
In the big leagues, but we're not in the big leagues.
Nope.
The thing that gets you to be a good baseball player, though, ultimately, and really what gets you longevity playing the game, is being able to catch the ball and throw the ball. Because if you can play defense into high school, you're going to get opportunities.
You see it with Coach Hill's team at Fords and Maldives. I love the way they go about their defensive presence.
You see it across all forms. If you're the teams that I saw a lot of errors. It was crazy. I think an inordinate amount of errors for championship baseball at the state championships. No offense to the teams. People like, oh my gosh, Brian, you're critical. No, it's just what I saw.
Yeah,
it was there.
Both teams are playing in the same elements too, so you can't give that as an excuse.
Absolutely. So I think that we've gone away from some of those things. To your point, the hitting, pitching's always been pretty good in Missouri, and we have good pitchers. But there's a lot of guys that we don't focus enough our intent on the defensive side, learning how, and I think it started here. We're not teaching that focus, that ability. One of the greatest things that I believe about fielding, about defensive baseball, is the ability to focus, the ability to understand, and the ability to believe that the baseball is going to be hit to me. And then, and I think this is what people, you got the numbers, everybody's screaming out the numbers and this and that. Are you paying attention to the signs, especially up the middle? Do I know the pitcher's trying to throw a curveball on the outer half of the plate and understand if he's a big swinger, he's rolling over to, as a shortstop, he's rolling over to my right side. If he's a light swinger, he's probably going to foul that off or hit it lightly to my left side. understanding what baseball is and understanding in that focus in that moment what that pitch means as far as it's coming off the bat.
Yeah, I said something to an
That's high level though. But you can teach that to kids. It's that starting process.
It's high level when you become an elite level center fielder and you can hear sounds and go, that ball's crushed. The ball is height. I need to go backwards. Oh, that ball was mishit. Look at his hands. And again, he goes back to focusing and expectations, right?
Sure.
Expecting baseballs. I think it happens in almost everything we do on the field. And, like ground ball hit the third base. The right fielder should not be standing in right field.
Mm-hmm.
Why isn't that right fielder backing that play up for a bad throw or a bunt down the line or moving parts? We have guest players playing for the last couple of weekends with us. I don't expect them to understand certain things on how we run defenses. We talk through those things. Well, guess what happens? Next time they don't do it again. And guess what happens for the next month? They don't do it again. And then all of a sudden, out of nowhere, they're in the right spot. Ball gets away, kid takes off, and he throws the ball behind him and backpicks him.
Right.
It doesn't happen right away when you talk about certain things when we're trying to get through to these athletes. And I don't understand why we're getting away from certain things. I don't know if it's the showcase side, like it's more important to go to those kinds of events at the high school levels or even at the 13, 14U level. I want to see these kids be able to play baseball when they get into high school. And I don't think we have enough kids that know how to play baseball. That's why certain programs struggle, certain don't. Is because some of these kids just flat out do not understand the game. David Freese said this, which, he's got the keys to the city, 2011 World Series. I was sleeping in Game 6. I thought it was over. Tells you how much of a baseball fan I am. Not. But I did watch the rerun, and I continue to watch it because it is one of the greatest games, I guess.
I saw it.
Of World Series baseball.
I wasn't asleep.
That's fine. Good for you.
FYI.
I was sleeping. I'm not that big of a baseball fan.
Saw Kirk Gibson's homer too.
I did actually see Kirk Gibson's. I was a Oakland A's fan. Then I was a Bash Brothers guy. I love Dave Stewart. Dennis Eckersley was weird, and that's why I love Dan Quisenberry. Because back then their style of pitching was submarine. So
remember Henderson?
Dave or Ricky?
No, David, the center fielder for the A's. Gosh, was that his name? Gosh, I'm trying to remember.
Well, Dave Henderson, I thought was a corner outfielder.
Yes.
Black
Yeah. Dave Henderson.
Yeah, had a handlebar mustache.
Yes.
I
called him Hindu.
I didn't know that.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, it makes sense.
Yeah, because he was kind of out there.
Yeah, and he was a big dude.
He
too.
mashed.
He did that. I really.
It wasn't just Canseco and McGuire.
No, you had you had table setters like Carney Lansford, the Mike Gallegos or whatever his name was at second base, Terry Steinbach.
Oh, who was the shortstop?
Walt Weiss.
Walt Weiss. Yeah.
I mean, we could go. I'm good at this stuff. I don't know who actually was in left field, but
we spewed.
But I don't even know where I was going at.
I blew you up.
Cut it out. And that was my
focus.
Yeah, focus. That's what
we lost it right there. Bro.
We are not developing a good program because we lost focus. But anyways, going back to that, and then we're gonna cut this short because I think what we have here is perfect for this show and this topic. I didn't even think about that piece of the athlete, and we talk about this all the time. Small details. Every ball that goes up in the air pointing to it. The pre-pitch communication. You had talked about the signs up the middle, reading the signs from the catcher, understanding what's going on. That's why everybody on the field in college and above have either the watches or the earpieces in the middle of the infield, is because they can relay information. And that goes back to nonverbal stuff, communicating. How do we do that? And I think that separates some of these premier level teams is they do a good job when somebody makes a mistake to turn around and get them out of it. They do a good job of pre-pitch communication. They do a good job of knowing, right? As a whole. I had some kids playing out of position this way. I said, what's our bunt coverage? Well, I don't know, coach. And I said, well, make one up. Well, I don't know what to do. I haven't played this position before. Buddy, have you been listening to me talk? You're a shortstop too. You know, you're an outfielder, and I'm not. And he's a good player. Don't get me wrong. And it's just overwhelming in the moment, right? And so you forget to. I do actually know the stuff, because when I brought him back in the dugout, I go, "Do you really not know our bunt coverages?" He goes, "I did. It was on the spot." And I go, "Yeah, think about that before it ever happens.
Focus.
Because I think that has to happen.
Learn how. Got to learn how.
Every new play, right? Every pitch has a new opportunity.
But it shows you where his mind is at that time. To be able to recall that information, you got to be playing those things over in your mind, setting your mind in the moment when you start the game. Okay, hey, you know what, guys, let's go through bunt coverages. I can't remember off the top of my head right now what are our bunt coverages. Hey, coach, what do we got? I want to make sure my mind is refreshed.
They don't think
but
about
we're not
that.
having that conversation. But that's a learned thought process to that. And we got to do that.
They care so much about the batting lineup. I pull that batting lineup away after I read it to everybody and they read it to each other. I pull that away. It won't be 10 minutes later. Coach, what's the lineup? I'll go ask a teammate who knows. It drives me.
Start doing that.
It drives me bonkers that's the stuff that they care about more than your bunt coverages. Because I don't think a coach should always tell the kids what to do. They will never learn. I think that's why we're in this little things that we have, because everything is coached.
But and to your point, I think this is the thing, the processes. We've went over this in practice, guys. You should be prepared mentally to go out and perform. This is not for me to coach you right now. In that respect, my job here is to manage the game, to set you guys in motion, put the lineup in place, put you defensively in that place. And as the game goes, we talk through things. And I said, we coached all this in practice. We did the bunt coverages. That's where the coaching happens, at practice, not during games. Go play the game at this point. And I think that's where we get, people say, well, we need to be able to coach through the game. No. That's where the failure happens, to where you have the notes, you can take it down. Then you go back to practice and you have the teaching moments that you bring into the practice. This is where we failed, guys, defensively. So we're going to work on these things. This is what practice is about. And we don't have enough of that.
We definitely don't have enough practice.
And that's
once
where,
a week.
do you understand where the cut? Hey, I saw my pitchers. None of you got behind the bags where you needed to be. We're going to work on that. If the ball's hit here, where do you go? With runners on here, where do you go? And that's got to be that. That's what those are about. You can't, if he's not doing that in the game, you can't holler out, get behind third base. If he's not going to be there, he's not going to be there. That's a note, and we're working on that in practice. These are the things I saw in the game, guys.
Yeah.
We're going to work on them.
I'm guilty because we're so far behind.
I get it.
I'm guilty.
I get it.
And
I understand. It's hard not to. You're like, get behind third base.
But it goes back to, again, your point. Start this at 8 years old. And if you think we're some militant type thing, it has nothing to do with that.
No, it's just
I promise you, when you
teaching.
get to 13U, the brand of baseball is going to be so much better and more fun to watch.
I wanted that to be in stereo. That's why I said it with you.
Oh. I was going to start singing again. I forget who sang the song that I think it was
I'm going to say something here. I'm going to hijack this moment from you, because we talked about tryouts, appearance. Don't chase wins. Don't chase trophies. If you're on a team and you're frustrated about something, go talk to somebody. Go talk to the director. Go talk to the coaches. Say, what is this going to be? Where is that? Have you talked to your child? Are you enjoying this? Are you having a good time? Are you, what are you learning? What are you learning? I'm asking these questions, and you see the microphones in front of the kid's face, and there's a lot not being said. There's very few kids that really can articulate that answer. I'm learning how to play baseball. Good. But what in particular? What are you focused on? What are you getting better at as an individual? And parents having these conversations before you go to some tryout and whatnot and change teams and the whole rotation of everything. Maybe that coach is the one you need and your son likes him, but because you guys aren't winning enough, you go to another. We're going to this because they're better. You're chasing wins. You're not chasing development. You're chasing wins. You're not paying to play. You're paying for the development. The gameplay should be the reward and the opportunity.
That's what I like the most out of what you just said is opportunity. You're paying for opportunities.
That's right. If you want your son to develop, find the coach that fits that he enjoys playing for, that understands how to communicate, that he has a good communication level with the kids.
I would argue or add to this, I think the parent is probably the most important person, especially at a young age in this process, because they have them 95% of the time, and going to practice to drop them off to get babysat for 2 hours is not the goal. And if you think that that's enough, you're going to be mistaken here in a few years, because you need to take them, and it comes dedication to the parent too. You have to take them to the facility. Most of these facilities give memberships to their organization athletes. There's not a reason why you shouldn't be there. Just because he's 8 or 9 or she is 8 or 9.
And that doesn't mean 7 days a week.
It
Find
doesn't
a routine.
It doesn't need to be an hour. It doesn't need to be any of that. You literally I showed these 9U kids last night. They were catching with fingertips. Most of the kids dropped the baseball. I said, I want you to throw a ball up and just hit it as hard as you can with the palm of your hand, then squeeze it. They couldn't get it. They kept trying to catch it with the fingertips. All of a sudden, you started hearing all these smacks happen. They stopped dropping baseballs. Then I go, I want you to lay down on your back. I took a baseball. Well, I didn't take a baseball. I took a tennis ball. Dropped the tennis ball over his chest. He had to put his hands on the ground. He had to go catch it. Complete panic, right? Off the fingertips. I looked at him. I go, what's wrong? He goes, I'm scared. I go, take a deep breath. He took a deep breath. I dropped. He caught it. And you can go home and do that.
Yeah.
You can go home and throw the baseball up and just catch it right off your nose if you want to. Or you can bounce it as high as you want to and go chase it. You can move as fast as you want.
Throw it off the garage door or the side of the house.
I was fortunate enough to have
That's what I did.
Well, I had a brick house, and my mom will tell you that. And
Don't do it if you got siding, kids.
yeah, especially a baseball.
The tennis ball. Though,
I still do it. I still will. We have a med ball wall that out in concrete area. I take a ball and throw it off there just to have fun.
Just a boom, boom, boom.
That's
we used to do it, play a game. You throw the ball off, you try and get, it's a ground ball, boom, boom.
Racquetball was my favorite because it come off pretty hot.
Yeah.
So you had to be quick. You know what I mean? And it's like those to me. And that's what I wanted to get at. But you got me on the focus. I really started to focus on that, pun intended. But doing things away from practice is how you're going to continue to grow.
Absolutely.
More, faster, and all these things that you're chasing. If you can imagine if I had 12 kids that every one of those kids practiced 5 times a week for some amount of time, go buy yourself a certain kind of bat and make it click and swing it 10 times in your yard to build your swing speed up. Go watch something that makes you confident. Like there's just so much that can be done and we're missing out on. And that goes accountability, focus. Back to the David Freese thing, and we're going to get off here. David Freese says 3 minutes a game is all you have in the batter's box. The 2.5 hour, 3 hour game, you have 3 minutes. One person has 3 minutes on average in a batter's box. The best in the world focus more. And I'm paraphrasing that. That was his comment. The best in the world focus more. If that's the separation between a Hall of Famer and a 5-year vet, I mean, I'm going to try to do everything the Hall of Famer does. That's why I complain, whatever you want to call it, on getting the most out of your experience by getting outside and doing stuff.
Yeah.
Because if you're not doing it, you're not going to get there. You just won't. And you could be good at 12 years old, but you're not going to get out there and do things. Everybody, thank you. development. Let me know. Let us know. Let the channel
Let you
know. You can message me however you want. I'll take it all. It sounded terrible.
Put it in the comments below.
Put it in the comments. I would like to know what your thoughts are in development. If you're a trainer, get on there. If you're an organization director, get on there. Kind of explain what your thoughts are in development. Because again, Brian opened my eyes on the word focus today. And so that's what we're going to use as today's word of the day is focus. But Game7baseball.com, still a few tournaments left. Youth Baseball Midwest, you're on YouTube already. I was made aware of that earlier. So you make sure that you hit the bell, get your notifications, the dingers, subscribe, follow us all, everybody that's on there so that you can get great content from them directly, personally, or anybody that we've had on the show. Plus you get cool content.
What he said.
Brian, tell these pitchers one word, the best advice that you have for them. One word. I'm not sure I phrased that correctly, but while he's thinking, I'll talk through that.
Focus.
Okay.
Word of the day.
Focus, focus, focus. Have a great day in the Lord.